Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, fellow Europeans.
Gražitų savo dangaus mėlyne, brangi tiek vargo kančių prityrei.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
It is a great honor for us Hungarian students and teachers to be here with you today, and it's especially important for me as it's my birthday today.
We're from Vienna, which is the capital of Austria, and even though we're representing an Austrian class here today, over half of us either immigrated themselves or their parents, and almost everyone has roots in a country other than Austria.
Good morning to everybody. Today, as you mentioned already, is a special day. It's the International Women's Day. And I am, as Vice President of the European Parliament, responsible to support all the efforts for the equality and diversity. My name is Dimitrios Papadimoulis. Among my portfolio, I have also other duties, like the relationship with the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, the relationship with the trade unions, the participation in the creation of the communication strategy of the European Parliament. I come from Greece, and I belong to the family, to the political group of the European left.
The suicide rates have grown tremendously in Greece. Youth unemployment has reached dangerous levels, and all of this because of the economic crisis that tortures my country. The Europe of unity and solidarity hasn't shown yet her solidarity to my people. How must the European Union act so as to help the weaker European economies to cope with their difficulties?
Our country is facing a deep crisis, which started in 2010, but the reasons, the origin of that crisis started much earlier, because we had for many, many years a bad governance in Greece, which created huge deficits and debts, with a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of clientelism, a lot of corruption. We tried to fix that problems, and the Greek people had a lot of sacrifices during all that years, a lot of cuts in pensions, salaries, social state, human and social rights, because of that previous bad governance and the false treatment of the memoranda. In the last 2 years, we started recovering. There is a reduction of the unemployment from 27 to almost 20%, in the youth unemployment from 57 to 33%. But the social problem and the level of the unemployment remains too high, and the social inequalities and the social damage is too big. During that years, we faced a lack of sufficient European solidarity vis-à-vis the Greek people. And that is questioning what kind of Europe do we want. We want a Europe who is supporting the growth of the economy, the convergence, the fight against rising inequalities, or a Europe who will work only for the interests of the richer part of the societies, of the richer member states, for the elite. I'm personally committed for a change of Europe to a direction more democratic, more social, and that it's important not only for our people, for Greece, but also for the European citizens and the European Union as a whole. Thank you very much for your question.
My question is going to be, is national sovereignty an outdated concept for the modern-day European Union?
This is a very important question. The European Union is not an obligatory project for the member states. We have 28 sovereign member states who decided to cooperate, to work together. And it is important with democratic rules to decide which will be that type of cooperation. It started with economic cooperation, and step by step it is transformed to a political cooperation. I think that is important to create the necessary democratic way for everyone who is participating in that project, strengthening the role of the democracy. It is important to have a stronger European Parliament, to have more transparent way of decision-making process, no decisions behind closed doors, to give more space to the criticism and to the dialogue to the people, and mainly to the younger people, who are the future for Europe, and to keep all the possibilities for everyone who does not want to continue to decide for an exit. We have the example of Brexit. The British decided with a small majority to exit from the European Union. I don't think that is a good decision, but it's their right, according to their sovereignty, to follow their route. And now we are discussing the rules about our divorce. But I'm very strong convinced that united we could do more, but with democracy, not with authoritarian methods. And that combines the sovereignty of the member states with the strength of the unity which represents the European Union.
So we should blame the companies who offer salary for the women, or the women who agrees to work for that salaries. And also you mentioned that we need more women in higher positions. So we need to put more women in higher positions because they are just women.
I don't think that it is good to say that we want to put more women in the higher positions because they are just women. I strongly support the idea that it's important to increase the presence of women in all levels of the human sphere, companies, politics, administration, because I strongly believe that women has a lot of talents, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and we have to encourage them to participate more actively in our future, because we will have better results with that. If you see the statistics, Dovan from Lithuania, you will see that the level of the education of the women year by year is becoming equal with the level of men. And also their skills are becoming equal. 1 century ago, there was a lot of European countries in which women didn't have the right to vote. There are now parts of the globe in which women are much discriminated vis-à-vis men. But for a European democratic member states, the idea that the women are weaker than men is, to my understanding, too conservative, too against the reality. And I'm a realist, and so I fight for equal rights between women and men. thank you, Dovan from Lithuania, for your question, because you gave me the opportunity to react in some arguments which I strongly believe that are false.
In your opinion, how should the EU react to countries like Poland decreasing the freedom of the press or weakening their democracy in some other way? Should these countries be prevented from making these changes or even punished? How do you feel?
In the last plenary of the European Parliament, I supported a resolution voted with a large majority, very large majority, more than 75% of the members of the European Parliament, who is strongly criticizing the Polish government for that diminishing of human rights. And that resolution is asking from the Commission to use the treaty, and more specifically the Article 7 of the treaty, because we are not a Europe a la carte. We are a European Union based in some common values, common rules. We do not have only rights, but also obligations. It is important also to say that if we are members of the European Union, we have to support all the provisions of the treaties for the independence of the juridical system or of the right of to speak freely or the respect to the democratic rules. I hope that that resolution, which I supported with my vote, will be heard not only from the Commission, but also from the Polish government, because it's important to follow and to respect our common rules if we are belonging to a family like the European Union. Thank you very much, Eero, for your question. I have to stop there answering in your questions, and I give the floor to the chair of your plenary.
Thank you, Vice President, once more.
We all think that education is very important, and without education we can do nothing. And we think that if we want to save our planet, we have to educate children, very little children. We have to educate them by school, with the help of media, cartoons, their family, that's very important. Then we think that the fact that note on each product how much it pollutes and how much it's polluted when we built it, it will be a great idea, because people will know so that by buying that product there will be some damage to the planet.
We need a transparency of the court, of the authorities, and with registered consequences if the law is broken. Others stood with the privacy because it's more important for the individuals. But we all agreed, the majority agreed, that if the national security is at stake, that less privacy on specific circumstances, it is acceptable. We should restrict the freedom of speech if it's against of other human rights. And we'll talk about that censors and laws, depending on the level of the threatening. If it contains inequality, gender inequality, or contains any racism, then we should limit it. We should draw a line that we cannot transpass if it's already a hate spreading. And our third issue was the education, and it was a simple task because we all agreed with we should educate pupils on the school for tolerance. Thank you.
The first problem we saw was that this project, this website, there is a website about the culture year of heritage, that it doesn't have enough attention. So none of us had heard of it. None of us were on this website and just Googled for some events or something to, I don't know, go to a museum. So there is a attention problem. And we've had, our first solution was that we need to get attention. So first of all, the organization as the European Union needs to have a good social media, needs to have a good website, needs to have famous people around them who support them, who say on their, I don't know, social media accounts, for example, say, guys, this is the year of cultural heritage. Have a look at our site, maybe go to a museum, have a look which events are happening. And this is the first step we need to take, we think, to make people want to get in touch with culture, want to get in touch with European culture. And we'd like to increase the prices of the culture itself this year. So we voted for one thing, which is that in this year, we have 2 culture days a week, which means on Monday and Saturdays, for example, everything is free for everybody in whole Europe. So you can go to a museum and it costs nothing. And that's what we want to do, because we want to get the people going to a museum because it doesn't cost anything.
Seeing as we are students, the main focus was education, as we are all enrolled in the education system in our own respective member countries. So the most heated arguments we had was about having a, you could say, a unified curriculum in all of the EU member states, that everyone's diploma is worth the same in every country. So if you get a diploma in Lithuania, it's equal as a diploma in the UK. We know that the European Union can't force members to do that, so we propose that there's a voluntary education reform program that establishes a common education in Europe which is fully voluntary from member states. So just to make a better future, as we are 20% of the European population, but we are 100% of the future, so we should care about ourselves. Another issue we had about education was to promote exchange programs such as Erasmus, Flex, and other exchange programs towards different countries to make sure that we can gain, as my previous colleague stated, to get to know different cultures, experience the world. We also think that it'd be very beneficial for all teachers, the teachers up there, to go on exchange programs to broaden their own mind and experience and be able to teach us more virtues. Of course, we also spoke about globalization, but to be fair, all we really want is the European Union to communicate and work with each other way more effectively. So that's going to be it.
When it comes to education, we all decided that in schools, students must learn that the refugees are people who don't want to harm them, but they are just people who are looking for a better, war-free life. We also believe that should be organized local conferences that could educate the locals about the refugees and help them expel any kind of prejudices they have about the immigrants. Also, we believe that it's very important to invest in the language learning, give them some time to learn the language. We feel that even investing some money and time in this process, at the end, it would pay off, as the migrants can help boosting the economy of the country, but also the European Union in general. Another thing that we discussed was how to have the better integration possible. We all agreed that creating associations that could help the locals have a better relationship with the refugees by getting locals and the refugees in the same place to get to know each other. In this way, the integration could become an easier process for both sides.
Starting with the first, which is the promotion of a dual system that is like an alternative to school. It starts at the age of 15, and with it you can have like hands-on experience. So you get employed, for example, as a mechanic, and you work for 4 days a week. You do really the hands-on work, you get paid, you are an employee, but on 1 day each week you go to school to learn about tax management and how to do the finances of a business, so that by the age of 18 you finish this sort of school and this sort of Yeah, and by the age of 18, you are ready to open your own mechanics shop. Then our number 2 proposition is an Erasmus work program, or an additional Erasmus work program, where kids starting from the age of 15 can work everywhere around Europe during the summer. It is paid, but the focus is on getting more experience, also to add it to your CVs, because often companies are looking for young people, but they still want them to have some experience. So this is an opportunity for everyone to practice language skills, learn about different cultures, but also get money and work.